oh hey, this is a spaceship movie, which means I don't need much of a clever joke to justify the twinkly star backgrounds I use in these ad reads for NordVPN. Guys, you're watching a web video in 2025. You know what a VPN does. And if you don't, you can learn more and try the NordVPN 2-year plan plus 4 months extra by going to nordvpn.com/moviebob or follow the link in the description. Risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. VPNs help you, your PC, your workstation, your tablet, your whatever. I'm an old guy, we just called it the computer. Be in more than one place at one time, even if you're not. Are you trying to look up the classic or hard-to-find movies, TV series, or games I talk about on my channel, but find they're only available to view or stream in certain regions? It happens to me all the time, and NordVPN can help with that. In an age where more and more content is getting restricted, siloed, or censored, NordVPN is all about making the internet more free and letting you see and share more information. The way the web ought to be. Like I said, check it out for yourself and see what you might have been missing. Click the link in the description or go to nordvpn.com/moviebob to get the NordVPN 2-year plan plus 4 months extra risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. And now, on to the show. Wow, people weren't kidding. This really does suck. So I was really in no great hurry to watch this, not because everyone told me that it sucked. I didn't want to believe them, partly because I'm actually a pretty big fan of at least the first 2 seasons of Star Trek Discovery. I don't think the show was bad in the later seasons, but I thought the first 2, when it was in the past doing its weird stuff instead of in the future doing less interesting weird stuff, was better. The way I like to describe Star Trek Discovery, especially what I think are the better 2 first seasons, Star Trek shows have taken place in a lot of different quadrants and sectors and systems, and this series, along with taking place in the past, most accurately took place in the we need to get some stuff out of our system. This was really the first one they did on streaming, and it was very clear that a lot of the long time working on Star Trek folks were really feeling their oats about, we want to really both break the lore and also get really obsessed with minutia in the lore at the same time, also do way more sex and violence than we have before, play with continuity, disrespect continuity, just a lot of competing ideas all mixed into the same stew, and at the same time, like everyone else was doing with the big push to try and get everyone to subscribe to their streaming services, run up those numbers and see who could try to get ahead of Netflix, overspend on what were still very much niche ideas, like a prequel Star Trek series that was also a hey, let's do different-ish stuff with Star Trek series. Which is how you end up with a spin-off series that becomes a spin-off movie like Section 31, which reeks. Even if this was going to work, which it doesn't, it would still have always, I suspect, reeked of the very obvious conditions of its production, which is, oh boy, we signed a big star like Michelle Yeoh to do this franchise, and she's agreed to do a series, and then immediately right afterwards, in a scenario not seen on quasi-disposable television of this caliber since, like, Arquette signing on to make CSI Cyber. Does anyone even remember that that was a thing? Just before winning an Oscar for Boyhood, and then still having to do a season of that fucking show, because she'd already signed on and shot a bunch of it. They had signed Michelle Yeoh to do the back half of the first season of Discovery, then the whole second season, and then sign on to do the spin-off series in Section 31. Then she wins the Oscar, Everything Everywhere All at Once, belatedly. You know, her stock in Western movies rises up to where it should have been all along, not doing a fucking Paramount Plus show. So this gets cut back down to, okay, we'll just do the pilot as a movie. Because whatever else you think about this product, it feels very much like something that would have been an kind of pilot. Like every other Star Trek series has an kind of pilot. Even Next Generation's pilot and whole first season are bad, come on. At the very least, you could have looked at this and said, okay, this is basically a cheap action movie premise that's really not any worse than those 2 shitty J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies, and the third one that he didn't do that's a little bit better, but at least could have maybe plausibly built out into a show. But now, it's not going to be a show, because they've built it mainly, at least from this pilot, around just being a star vehicle for her, and she's not going to do this show. She's going to keep making movies. Even the plot of the show is premised around her being too good for this shit. Here's the thing. Just as I am a fan, apologist, whatever you want to call it, for definitely half the first 2 seasons of Discovery and Discovery overall, I get that Section 31 is one of those things that a lot of Star Trek fans just don't like in the franchise. I have always been in that minority of fans that think Section 31 is a really cool idea that they've never really done what they should with, because the point of it, that it's a whole part of the lore that is counter to the ideology of Next Generation and beyond Star Trek, is what's cool about it. Star Trek is fundamentally a Kennedy-era wish dream of pick your poison, either a functioning, successful American or functioning, successful Soviet empire running the world, expanded out into the universe. The only way that works is if the CIA or the KGB are cleaning up the messy parts behind the scenes and they're pretending that they're not. Spoiler alert. So the idea that the Federation has a Black Ops division that does, their wet work and just murders the messy parts, yeah, okay, it works. It's a good idea. It at least dealing, even if you're ultimately coming down against it in the storytelling, is a good idea. It's a good premise to explore. But this really isn't that. Like, the show's called Section 31. It's not actually about Section 31. What it's about, inevitably, in this era is whichever, you have to assume, dozen voices for the past over a decade that have been shouting within the production offices of Star Trek, this is a space show, make a Guardians of the Galaxy for us, got relented to and made it, and that's the Section 31 show. It's about a crew of misfits that sort of works for a part of Section 31 somewhere, mostly seen off screen, getting together, who don't like each other. They're given exactly enough screen time to have exactly one positive character trait, one negative character trait, a little bit of backstory that would have been paid off in a longer series, except for the one guy whose special makeup effects are more expensive than would have been allowed into a whole series, so that's the one that's going to die. Spoiler warning for movie magic, if you're watching a pilot for something and there's a really expensive looking character, that's the one they're probably going to kill. And I wouldn't mind all of that. The fact that it's not really a Section 31 show, the fact that it's Guardians of the Galaxy meets Suicide Squad, but for Star Trek, those are not inherently bad, unoriginal ideas. Very obvious this was a by-obligation production, going through the motions of stop the thing from doing the thing action show. All of the signs that the screenplay and story stuff were set in stone way, way farther back than it's finally coming out are there. They're doing all of the character development for Giorgio, Michelle Yeoh's character, again. If you thought that they had already taken her from super bad guy to sort of anti-hero in the previous several seasons of television that she'd been seen in, nope, they're doing it again because we have to remind everyone what's going on, so she's basically regressed and can progress again. But all of the references and new backstory stuff that they've added to her and added to the Terran Empire are now like a rewrite of some Hunger Games stuff, because that would have been a new reference whenever they were thinking this up, which is very dumb. There's a new bad guy added in that comes out of nowhere, new lore, and it's just very deeply uninteresting. The new characters don't really feel like anything. And if it sounds like I'm dancing around not actually reviewing this, there's just not that much to review. It's a B-grade action show pilot with Star Trek references and a very checked out feeling performance, not just from Michelle Yeoh, who has every reason to check out this. Everyone feels checked out. Maybe there was more in it when it was almost going to be a series, but now this feels like something that they don't think anyone wants to watch, that they don't think anyone will revisit anytime soon, and I am running out of shit to say to get this review to the proper length. So yeah, this sucks. 4 out of 10. I would still rather watch this than either of the Abrams Trek movies. I can say that. Like, if strap me down and force me, and I would still rather watch this than watch Chris Pine try to be Captain Kirk. With apologies to Simon Pegg, who tried his best.